It's World Press Freedom Day, and we are delighted that Ghana is hosting the function World Press Freedom Day. I think that the press in Ghana is sufficiently free, but there's something more that we can do. World Press Freedom Day is today and is hosted in Ghana. We have two aspects of the program for you tonight. We have an editorial on politics, and the editorial is also on John Dramani Mahama, the former president of the Republic of Ghana, who is on his unity walks, and at the weekend in Kumasi, it was a mammoth crowd that he pulled in his unity walk. We are asking in our editorial tonight, should John Mahama run for president again? That's the question we are asking, and we're going to be analyzing it with the merits and demerits of it. And after that, we will be back in the studio with a discussion on the Nation Builders Corps. This was a program launched by President Akufo-Addo on May Day in the Ashanti region, and it's generated sufficient discussion on social media and all over the world. The program is about creating temporary jobs for graduates who are unemployed. Graduates from the university and graduates from the polytechnics can apply to various models of the program, and it will take at least 100,000 people to work. It will create 100,000 jobs at the rate of, at the compensation rate, I should say, of 700 Ghana cedis a month. We're going to discuss that in the main program after we do the editorial. And so now, let's get ready for the editorial and roll it. We are asking the question, should John Mahama run for president again?
Ghana, we now have freedom. Ghana, land of freedom. Toils of the brave and the sweat of their labors. Toils of the brave which have brought results.
So President Mahama appears to be indicating that he wants to be president again. He wants to contest the NDC ticket in this year, end of this year, to become the NDC's presidential candidate for the election of 2020. And hopefully, if he wins, he'll become president again for the second time. There's a lot of discussion within the NDC itself, outside the NDC, as to whether he is the best candidate or that he is not the best candidate. There are other candidates contesting for the same position on this one. On our editorial tonight, we're asking whether he should run for president again. The first thing I think we need to sort out is that some people actually don't understand whether he can run for president again. That's the legal position, whether after he's been president, like Rawlings has been president, Kufuor has been president, John Mahama has been president. So they're asking the question, can he be president again? Yes, he can. And the answer to the question is in Article 66 of the 1992 Constitution, 66 Clause 2, which we'll show to you now. It's the answer to the question. You can see it says that a person can run for 2 terms as president. It doesn't say 2 consecutive terms or 2 terms apart. So John Mahama has been president for 1 term, and the Constitution describes the period of 1 term as 4 years from the day that the person was sworn in as president. So John Mahama has done 1 term, and he is able to do at most 1 more term. And that's part of the conversation we'll be having. He can do 1 more term. So he can be president in 2020 until 2024, or he can be president from 2024 until 2028. So yes, John Mahama is qualified to run for president. Let's move on and look at John Mahama's personality, which some people believe is perhaps one of the fine things about him as a politician. In John Mahama's personality, let's hear what Kojo Bonsu, one of the NDC stalwarts, former mayor of Kumasi, has to say about John Mahama's personality.
After our rebranding, that was when he was selected as our running mate. He brought a lot of people on board. I mean, people who really didn't want to know NDC came to join because of John Mahama.
So that's Kojo Bonsu's view of President Mahama, and well, he's an internal NDC person, but many people think of President Mahama as, yes, he has a nice personality, he's a nice person. But there's something else we found about President Mahama in terms of how he views other people, and we found it from his book. Now, President Mahama is the only Ghanaian president to have published a book. It's entitled My First Coup d'etat. And in a chapter of the book entitled Of Silence and Solidarity, he singles out a young man in his school, in class 3 in Adom-Otchere school, and writes about him. The young man's name is Ezra. From our research, we are getting into the mind of John Mahama, and we're asking ourselves, was he thinking of Ezra and his posturing and comparing it to, perhaps, the posturing of somebody within the NDC? We'll get to that in some detail, but let's look at what John Mahama writes about Ezra, his young friend in primary school. He says, and in the book, it was with much consternation that we came to realize that the brand new member of our Class 3 group was a bona fide bully. That's what President Mahama says. He's indicating that he doesn't like bullies. So he says that the guy was a bully. It took a while, he says, at least the first few weeks of the term, for that truth to come to light, because initially he tried to blend it in. I think it was his way of studying us, taking note of our individual constitution and our collective consciousness, so that when he was ready, he will know how far he could go. Because, President Mahama says in the book, people will push you only as far and hard as you allow them to. Feigning kindness and friendship was his due diligence. It goes on to say the boy's name was Ezra, and despite his best efforts to fit in, it was apparent from the start that it would be difficult for him to fit in. There were 10 of us in the dormitory, he says, and Ezra was the tallest. He was a couple of years older than us. As I jump over some of the lines and go to the last line in this second paragraph. It says it will be impolite and in poor taste, as he said, to ask why Ezra was in their class, because he was older than them. And it will be of no difference. Anyway, after all, he says, whatever the reasons, Ezra was in our class. Something else that made Ezra stand out, he says, was that he was very muscular, which was quite strange for a child. His physique resembled those of the men we sometimes saw on the campus ground clearing the underbush with long, slightly curved cutlasses. Their skin, he says, which was blacker than even a starless sky at midnight, will be glistering with sweat, describing the men that Ezra looked like. This is the people who were using the langa-langa, as we call it, to cut the bush. He goes on and says that the rest of the class were of average size. We weren't weaklings. That's what President Mahama says. He says we weren't weaklings, nor did we look as though we had kwashoko. Though standing next to Ezra, you might be inclined to wonder. I wasn't at all surprised to learn that Ezra's father was a farmer, though I would have guessed that it was an animal farm and not a cocoa farm, because Ezra looked as though he had been born, raised, and fed in much the same way as livestock. That's in the book. So in this series, President Mahama reveals his disdain for bullies, his disdain for people who try to get other people to act along the way they wanted. He goes on to say, his father, though uneducated, had made a lot of money for himself. He wanted his son to attend Adom-Otchere, the school where the doctors, lawyers, politicians, and other members of the upper echelon sent their kids. With good reason, the book continues, Ezra was a bush boy. He said, with good reason, because perhaps Ezra was a bush boy. He was tactless and uncouth. Little by little, as the days and weeks wore on, he revealed more of his true nature. So this is Ezra, who is singled out for description in not so complimentary terms by President Mahama in his book. Essentially, that Ezra was a bully. Now, this President Mahama at age 9 or 8 in class 3, writing his book as vice president, then soon to become president, and was recounting the dislike he had for this guy who was a bully type guy. Okay, finally, he goes on, he says that we went out of our way to be nice to him. We would invite him to play with us. We would let him stand at the front of the queue in the dining hall. We did all of this to welcome him into our circle. It was a show of hospitality. Ezra saw it as a deficiency, his invitation to crown himself as king of us all. So that's the thesis on Ezra that President Mahama puts in his book. We are trying to reveal the personality of President Mahama. You've heard what Kojo Bonswa said, and that's what he says about Ezra. Let's move on to look at the profile of President Mahama in terms of his political experience, and we know that already. President Mahama became a politician in the 1996 elections. In that election, he won the seat in Bole Bamboy to represent the NDC, which was the ruling party at the time. In 1997, he was made Deputy Minister of Communication. At that time, the NDC had merged the Ministries of Information and Communication. So he was Deputy Minister of Communication, then he became Minister of Communication in a reshuffle that occurred sometime in 1998. In 2000, he won his seat even even though the NDC lost the presidential elections. He went into Parliament, and in Parliament he became the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Later on he became Vice President, and also he became President. So that's President Mahama's political profile, quite rich and quite sustaining in terms of his understanding and appreciation of politics. So let's look at the merits of John Mahama presidential aspiration on the NDC ticket. Now, the point about the NDC's campaign in 2020 is that it will have a monolithic theme. What the NDC will be telling the Ghanaian people is a comparative analysis. They'll be inviting Ghanaians to do a comparative analysis between what Akufo-Addo has done from 2016 to 2020 and what John Mahama had done in his first term. Perhaps they can go over to Mills, MPP will go over to Kufuor, but those will be the fringe sort of narrative. The main central theme of 2020's campaign is John Mahama's 4 years versus Akufo-Addo's 4 years. So if the NDC candidate is, say, Spio Gabra, he would have to be talking about John Mahama's record of the first 4 years. Most likely they'll hinge on infrastructure, etc., etc. But Spio Gabra will have to be mentioning John Mahama's name consistently in his campaign against the MPP. If it's Joshua Alabi, he'll have to do the same thing. He will be confined to mention John Mahama's name against the MPP. So the big merit for John Mahama is that why not he himself? Because he's available, so, and he's qualified to run. So instead of Spio Gabra running on John Mahama's record, why can't John Mahama come and put up his own record and say, this is what I did? That will be a stronger message in communication terms than for somebody to say it for him. So that's what's going for John Mahama in terms of whether or not he should run. It's a big meritorious argument for him that the campaign is going to run on a comparative analysis basis, on a comparative, you know, you did this, I did this, and it's going to be John Mahama's time, Akufo-Addo's time. If John Mahama is available, he must be certainly the one talking about it. So that's a big merit for John Mahama, and they might say that he's been president before, so he sort of understands the mistakes he made and he'll be able to do it better this time. He has more experience, etc., etc. That's the merit going for him. But what are the demerits of John Mahama's campaign? What are the things that will go against him if he should decide to run? Let's look at the demerits now.
Ghana, we now have freedom. Ghana, land of freedom. Toils of the brave and the sweat of their labors. Toils of the brave.
So in terms of the demerits that go against John Mahama, the cons that go against John Mahama, people are going to say that he has been deputy minister, he's been minister, he's been vice president, he's been president. What else does John Mahama want to do? The MPP are going to rack up that campaign against him, and they are going to say all of those issues against him. It looks like gradually he's getting the NDC together, but he's going to have to deal with that question. People who work for John Mahama and his communication, his campaign team would have to deal with that question. What else does John Mahama want to achieve? Deputy minister, minister, vice president, president. Is there anything more he can do for the people of Ghana? That's a question that you have to answer. The other bit is President Mahama's relationship with the godfathers, particularly Flight Lieutenant Rawlings. And we bring back the Ezra question. We're asking tonight that is Rawlings the new Ezra in President Mahama's life? He had one Ezra when he was 3 years old in Adom-Otchere school, when he was 8 years old in class 3 in Adom-Otchere school. Does he feel that he has another Ezra, a bully type guy who comes to join the class, comes to join the club and wants to take over brutally without negotiation and wants to direct people as to what they should do? Is that how President Mahama sees President Rawlings as the new Ezra in his life? We're asking that question tonight in this editorial. Because his relationship with Flight Lieutenant Rawlings has not been very good. Well, it was okay in 2012, but it was not okay in 2016. And we were wondering, everyone was wondering why Rawlings was not on the campaign, and Johnson Asiedu Nketia offered an explanation. He said JJ is too old, and so JJ cannot be part of the campaign. Now, when the NDC's launch of campaign occurred in Cape Coast, however, JJ was present. And it was then that people got to understand that JJ is really not part of this campaign. This is what Mr. Rawlings said, just to remind you, in Cape Coast at the launch of the NDC campaign of 2016.
I will reserve what I have to say till after the elections, when I will come around the country to share with you how I think we could restore the kind of strength that can take us well into the future. I will reserve what I have to say till after the elections, when I will come around the country to share with you how I think we could restore the kind of strength that can take us well into the future.
Okay, so JJ then did not participate in the rest of the campaign, and it was expected that he would be at the final rally at the Accra Sports Stadium, where John Mahama addressed the NDC faithfuls, a really, really mammoth crowd at that rally. Easily over 200,000 people were in the stadium, out of the stadium, in the environs of the stadium. That day, it was a really big crowd. It was expected that Flight Lieutenant Rawlings would be there. He didn't show up at the final rally. So everyone was wondering, what is Mr. Rawlings doing? Is it true that perhaps he's tired and perhaps he's not well or something like that? Everyone, that question about what Rawlings was doing was answered on the day that Adom-Otchere declared the election results. And we all found out that apparently Flight Lieutenant Rawlings had been working for the NPP during the period of the campaign. Here is the evidence.
To the senior citizens of our country who have given me invaluable advice over the years, amongst them the former President of the Republic, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Kofi Annan, and Captain Kojo Chikata.
So to those names that Nana Akufo-Addo mentioned in thanking them, Captain Chikata and Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, do remember to add the name of this man. The man you see on the screen is General Arnold Koinu, a military general of high rank who is one of those affiliated to the NDC and very loyal to the NDC, and also one of the overlords of the Volta region. It is widely reported that he with JJ and others were in the Volta region campaigning against John Mahama. So that the difference between Flight Lieutenant Rawlings and Ezra is that whereas Ezra came to join the Achimota school class, Mr. Rawlings actually set up this thing called the NDC. So that's the difference. Ezra came to join, Mr. Rawlings set it up. And if John Mahama is not able to fix the relationship with Rawlings, would it once again affect him if he runs a national election? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. We can look at it. But it certainly did affect the outcome of 2016. Could it affect the outcome of 2020 as well? I don't know. Now, Mr. Rawlings set up the party in 1992. That's a very long time ago, 25, 26 years ago. And then Mr. Rawlings held the soul and the image of the party. Does he still hold the soul of the image of the party now? I don't know. Let's go back all the way to 1992 and see the way in which the NDC outdoored Flight Lieutenant Rawlings as their flag bearer, and you will hear later on what Dr. Obed Asamoah and what Guzi Tando said about JJ Rawlings. Now, if you look at this video and you don't see yourself in it, and you don't see your godfather in it, you don't see your father in it, your uncle in it, then you are a new member of the NDC. This is the NDC of old, NDC 1992, JJ's NDC. That's how it started.
Today, the elections were conducted by your officials under our supervision. The elections have been conducted in accordance with your constitution in our presence, and we have been given a copy of a list of elected persons in various capacities. We are satisfied that the elections were conducted under the terms of your constitution. Thank you very much.
Jerry John Rawlings does not need any introduction to either this Congress or the General Electorate of Ghana. Since 1979, and for a period of 13 years, he has led a courageous, constructive and successful revolution to rescue our dear country from decay and hopelessness.
Yagene, Yada, Yazunaya, Yazenda, Wamambana Yarino, Alabama, Jerry, John, Morris. Bama John, what was up? Yama Wunzan, Saturday, Wadauruma, and the money my way. Some never did him near Mount Wachi, now call the Hokoyano, Brabatuaso. Yaja, and you will be there. A cat non can go any about it. And the Amon, and the Abajo, and Diana, while I get a banana tree, Nana more. When you have no more, when you pop on the floor. So I went to Yako, so I didn't know, and you lose your was Yano, Mamma and Quanqua Boswell, and money to the
JJ was popular, and we knew that if we set up a party in his name and made him the presidential candidate, he would win the elections, which he did.
So after you've seen all of that, we can continue the discussion, we can continue analyzing, but the question we are putting to you is that, and send your comments on our Facebook page, the question we are putting to you tonight is that, should John Mahama run for president again? Thanks for watching. After the break, we get back into the studio and we're going to be talking to our panel on Nation Builders Call. Okay, so thank you for watching that. That's generated, animated comments on our Facebook page, and I'm going to read all of them. Some of them are very, very serious, directed at me personally, but I'll share with you so that we can make a determination. Hello, John. Thank you for coming. John Mahama is going to be our guest when we talk about Nation Builders Call. He has an impressive profile as a social entrepreneur of global reckoning, and he wrote a piece on one of the platforms, and I found it. I thought it was interesting. He wrote a piece about the Nation Builders Call. He analyzed it from all the international labor regulations and definitions of what a good salary is and what a bad salary is for a graduate. So tonight we'll be getting into that. It's now half an hour before 10 o'clock, the top of the hour. So here are the messages that are coming in. After I read the messages, though, I'm sure you've heard of the no longer rumors. Billboards have come up that Anas Harimia Anas has put up a video, has put up a documentary once again, in an anti-corruption documentary in Ghana. This morning on Good Morning Ghana, we got a bit of a sneak preview of it, not the video itself, but with Kokubako telling us the details of what's in the film. So I'll show you that conversation that Kokubako had with Randy Abe on Good Morning Ghana this morning, and then we can all brace up for what Anas is about to do. He's doing it in June. At least he's published the dates in which this documentary will be showed. So we'll show you a bit of that, and then you can understand what Anas is talking about this time. Text messages. Abdul Hamid Dramani Bansi says, stomach journalist, that's referring to me, I guess. Be serious in life. You can't just take stupid money and always come and talk about John Dramani Mahama. Okay. Abdul said, right again. He says, what's your problem with NDC? Hypocrites like you. Okay. Stephen Techi says that, what at all does John Mahama want after being assemblyman, deputy minister, minister, vice president, and president? Is he the only white man? Good analysis, Paul. Derek Wachi says that, I will advise the former president to listen to Apostle Dr. Isaac Owusu-Bempah. Let him go and rest. NDC, try Mr. Alabi Joshua 2020 so that he can do better 2024. Forget 2020, he says. Another one says, don't forget, Nana tried 3 times before winning, so JM is coming back. Francis Echua says that you and Kwekubako are political historians. Okay, Nana Yakobi said, I second you. He has nothing to discuss. I think that's referring to the earlier Hamid, you know. Kingsford Kwame Mills says, MPP de Bopa, economy and hardship song. Okay. Agali Faisal says, we are watching cause of John Mahama. Okay, keep watching. And Espoku says, we don't need him. He should rest in perfect peace. Kwabena Fosua Japan says, remember that JM has his 10 already. Let's allow someone to come back. Another one says, it's legal, perfectly legal for him to come back. But it says that he should go for it. It's legal for him to come back, but should he go for it? And then another one from Tamale says that you have really educated us on your editorial this evening. Is an eye-opener. Mahama can run many times as he wishes. Seriously, you and your production are too much. This is lovely. Okay, more text messages coming to us, I think from our WhatsApp platform. Chrissy Asari says there are two things to consider. Does NDC want to survive as a party after 2020's elections? Why worry about 2024? I don't quite get that. Philip says that, Paul, your job is hard, oh, justifying your appointment to the NCA board. John Mahama fever gives you guys blue balls. Okay, that's Jeffrey Parker says that the best gift the NDC can ever give the MPPs to choose Mahama to contest against Akufo-Addo and the Baumia ticket. In that likely scenario, the NPP presidential pair will laugh all the way to the electoral bank to cash their landslide check one more time. Somebody says, I want to remind you of what John Kufuor told MPP party members. And then Jameshi Raphael says, Rawlings is not God who help people to succeed in life. Another one from Sejifa Steven says, Mahama is the worst thing to have happened to Ghana. He should come and run again. He would lose again. Okay, so quite animated discussions on our page. More coming in. Paul, you never disappoint. Very educative editorial. Thank you very much. That's coming from Adom-Otchere. Well, the opinions are divided. Some people like it, some don't like it. It's always a case, isn't it? This is Good Evening Ghana and it's live, and we're always delighted to have contrary opinions. Well, let's have a look at this video as you can let your messages keep coming. Now, this morning on Good Morning Ghana, Kweku Baku Jr., the celebrated journalist, spoke to Randy Abe about what may be in the Anas video. As you know, Kweku Baku is the only known mentor to investigative journalist Anas Aremia Anas. And this morning on Good Morning Ghana, he gave us a sneak preview, not in the video, but in his words, about what's really in the Anas video that's coming up in June. Have a look at it. Have a listen. Here's Randy talking to Kweku Baku this morning.
Right. Ojam?
Yeah, man.
Since, I guess, it was this weekend that I saw billboards coming up. And then I saw number 12. Anas Aremia Anas. And it says, when misconduct and greed becomes the norm. I tried to track him down. And I see that your paper has been putting it on the front page, even up to this morning. And on the 6th of June is when we'll have the first viewing at Accra International Conference Center. Already there's fear and panic in the system because the billboard doesn't say much. The advertisement doesn't say much. All it tells us is that he's gone after some guys who are involved in greed and a misconduct, and it appears that it is the norm. I tracked him down the holiday. He promised, he pretended he was busy and promised that he will get to me immediately. He was with some people. I got a couple of his boys and they say, look, okay, they cannot tell me directly what it is, but they can give me 3 leads. So they say that it's either Parliament, either the Flagstaff House, or the oil and gas sector. And that it is an investigation that started in 2016 into 2017 and then very early part of 2018. What is the number 12 about?
Randy Abbey. But I'd always thought that Anas had 2 shadow editors.
Yes.
You and Kwame Sefaka.
Yes.
So you should know better.
I am worried because it looks like he's deliberately, he's deliberately avoiding me.
See, it's always better to wait for the thing to come out than to speculate, even though I have committed 2 or 3 errors along the line by sometimes over-enthusiastically pointing to the direction. And I've been cautioned that is a bad practice. And upon sober reflection, I've realized that I've been immature in dealing with those things. So I've become very hesitant in terms of disclosures. This one, it's not in the oil industry. It's not.
It's not. So that's out.
It's also not in which other one did you say?
Parliament.
Yes.
It's not.
No.
That is also out.
And it is not about the Jubilee House, previously Flagstaff House.
So that's also out. So all my 3 leads are wrong.
Now listen carefully. Not exactly, but let me. It doesn't mean that you will not get personalities or characters in these areas who are subject of investigation and exposure.
Okay, then I now get why they gave me those leads. Okay.
So, but basically, look, it's about football and
it's
politics.
About what?
Football and politics.
Football and politics?
Yes.
Oh, I don't understand why he doesn't want me to know.
Local and external.
Local and international?
Yes.
Football?
Football.
That's what our NAS thing is about?
Yes.
The number 12?
And politics.
Football and politics?
Yes. And that's an explosive mix.
Explosive mix?
Yeah, it is. It's a dynamite.
It's a dynamite?
Yes.
Wow.
Unfortunately, sometimes, you see, we are all sentimental. We are all human beings. And it hurts sometimes when you see a fine gentleman or good persons, people you know, you like, becoming casualties. You understand? Yes, but this world, none of us is perfect. Let me make clear, I'm not perfect.
Right.
I'm infallible. I'm fallible, you know. So I don't want to sound hypocritical. But because none of us is perfect, you must always ensure you have a certain level of integrity, which can be your insurance against any temptation, provocation, or, you know. So that's what we are. We are all human beings. As we walk around, all of us have weaknesses. And if you are not strong, or if you are not careful, no matter how good you are, you get exposed and it becomes irredeemable.
Wow.
The damage is irredeemable.
In this one?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm obviously not one of the people.
You are number 3 on the list.
Oh, what?
Of course not.
Well, I hope I'm also not in it. Okay, so so it's about sports, politics, local sports, and international sports. That's where the investigation of corruption was conducted by Anas Arimia. Anas, it will be aired in Accra and also on the BBC sometime in June, almost as a prelude to the World Cup. By the time that is airing, the opening game of the World Cup will be just a few days away, or it may actually have occurred. And so it will be part of the entire World Cup fever. Okay, I go back to the text messages which are coming in thick and fast about our editorial on John Dramani Mahama's chances of contesting the next election and winning it. Terry says that JM is an honest man, just that the MPP people lied against him to win power. The MPP is not governing the country well. We need JM back, he says. Bob Sibob says that he can never be president again, not in this country. Nianan says that great speech, Paul. Excellent job you're doing. Yes, Mahama should run again. Will be easy for Nana to win. Okay, Remedy Lawrence. That's interesting name. Remedy Lawrence says you should stop talking about him. You are just biased. Eric Amponsa says, please, let's take this opportunity to remember ourselves about the 2016 election. John Mahama, 44.4%. Onapo. Okay, Samoa Ekua says that great analysis, Paul. Kudos. Blackmore Bayon says that, please, if Mahama can be president again, then Rawlings can also come back again as president. But I'm very sorry, Mahama should forget it. Boama Kweku Boatin says, Paul, good job. I admire your analysis. Kweku, that's his name. Kweku says, I don't believe in any of the parties anymore. Whoever ran, I don't care. But why should it be Mahama? What again can he do? Please let us rest as a statement. That's what he said. Taria Lord says that we need JM back because Nana-Addo and his government has failed Ghanaians. They lied to win power, he says. Amos-Ejari Sam says, I'm always in love with the way you drill the NDC people. You are such a brilliant host. More of these in the coming years. Okay, Amos. Well, Kwame Sarkodie says, Joshua Alabi is the best candidate for 2020. He's just using the Unity Work platform to campaign for 2020. That's about President Mahama. Kwame Sarkodie, okay, that's what I just read. Walter Blinks says, Paul, don't worry, come 2020, we shall see the way you'll run your program. Hashtag JDM is coming for life. And Chris Addy says, my man, of late, all your programs are focused on John Mahama. Why? What's your agenda? That's not true, actually. It's factually incorrect. This is the first program since 2016 elections that we are talking about John Mahama. Abe Daniel says that, what's your agenda? Why this needless topic? Why not NACOB or any of the current affairs issues? Well, we are coming on to NACOB right now. Eric Amponsa says, please, let's take this opportunity. Okay, that's already been read. Okay. John Mahama, your term is over. Stay aside and give another person a chance. Nana-Addo has failed Ghanaians. Okay, those of you who would like to see the video as a video on demand, as they say, it will be on our Facebook page later tonight or tomorrow morning. Sort of re-edited and repackaged so that you can see it and share with your friends. Thanks for that. It's 15 minutes to the top of the hour. John Ama is here from Orioles Group, and we're talking about the big story. So the government announced NAPCOP, and
yes.
I saw your article, brilliantly written. Yes. And I get excited when I see young people analyzing government policy. What was your first impression for you as a startup business developer and a social entrepreneur?
Well, thank you and good evening to your viewers, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here again. I remember in 2012 we had that discussion.
Yeah.
For me, it's important that we put this discussion in perspective. That by 2035 we're going to have Africa contribute to the largest workforce in the world. We're going to have about 1 billion of the entire continent's workforce. So what that means
Africa is going to produce 1 billion. 1 billion workforce.
Yes.
We're already a billion in population.
Yes.
But you're saying by 2035,
yes,
the young population that can work, 18 to 60.
We're going to contribute about 1 billion of the entire, which is bigger than India and China, if you put that together. Now,
will it be bigger than India and China then?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
in terms of their workforce.
That's interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
In terms of, is this being calculated based on our population growth?
Yes. Again, so you can look at it within that context. You look at it also from that perspective. Then you're looking at it from, there are about 10 million entrants to Africa's labor market each year, which is also a big issue.
That's Africa-wide,
yes.
continent-wide.
As you speak, there are about
10 million entrants to
labor market each year. As you speak, there are 200 million people who are unemployed. 65 million of them are youth. Guess what? Africa has 12 million of our youth being unemployed.
How many does Europe have? You name that.
So Asia and the Pacific have about 1 million of youth who are working but live in poverty. Guess what? They have 8 million of them who are also unemployed.
Asia.
If
has
you pick
8 million unemployed youth.
8 million. If you
Africa
pick
has 12 million.
12 million. If you pick 65 million, you have 12 million of our population who are not directly engaged in some sort of meaningful work. Then that's a challenge for all of us. What we are saying is that ISA put out a report, and in ISA's report they stated that you have just about 10% of our graduates gaining employment or formal jobs just after school, and that's also a big challenge. Yes.
Of every 100, only 10.
Only 10. So 10%. Of
every 1,000, 100.
10%.
So of 30,000, 3,000.
So that's a big issue.
So these
some sort of employment.
So is it entrepreneurial employment?
So it could be that they're working with family, household enterprises, etc. Now, if we put this in perspective, then we're saying that what is it that governments are doing to try and create jobs for many young people? Now, we must understand that the concept of creating jobs is a function of expanding the local economy. So what we are saying is that if you have a prudent fiscal regime, then you're going to do some things right. If you are able to stabilize the macroeconomic fundamentals, you're going to do something. If you're able to improve the indices around the ease of doing business, you have the increase in production capacity, you have businesses who are expanding, then we're going to see some sort of lateral, vertical growth, career growth within these firms, which will create opportunities for more young people to be employed. Yeah. Now, beyond that is to situate this situation within the context of Ghana and make it local. And ask yourself that what is government doing to sort of create jobs? It's important to state that we had a national employment policy that was created in sometime in 2012, regularized in 2015. That was supposed to have set up a national employment planning committee of a sort to then harmonize sort of these policies that we're trying to use to create jobs for many young people. That said, we also instituted an act that established a Youth Employment Agency. YEA, which is the Act 887 or so. Now, within that act, we stated that YEA was going to be the coordinator for many of the youth employment initiatives and programs that we're going to put out in this country. They're going to coordinate, in fact, entrepreneurial development also in Ghana. So if we put that as one route to market and say this agency should be focusing necessarily on graduate and non-graduate.
YEA is not for graduates only.
But that's not true because of the act I just quoted. It didn't state specifically as to whether or not it would deal with graduates or non-graduates.
Yeah, so it includes graduates and non-graduates.
Exactly.
But NAPCOP is limited to graduates.
Which is where I want us to establish some policy coherence in Ghana as we move forward. That let's take another initiative which we helped set up, which was the Youth Enterprise Support Fund, which is now the National Entrepreneurship Innovation Plan, which exists now as a policy or a program without any legal basis or status. So it's a program. So you've got to question where the source of funds are from. Now, if you start another, which is NAPCO, we are calling Nation Builders Corps, without also a legal status, that's challenging, that's worrying.
Does it lack legal status?
Yes, it does, because as it stands now, it's just a program. You know, so it can be situated under any of these agencies. But then you've got to establish you've got to give some power to YEA. So that's why, again, there are questions that people have raised.
But which agency is implementing NAPCOP?
So it looks like it would be stated under the office, which is where NEIP also is. But that speaks to sustainability in that regard. So again, we've got to address that issue very clearly.
NAPCOP is an interim program, isn't it?
It is, but you see, if we continue to do that, you must again demystify the minds of Ghanaians about this sustainability and growth. Because as we speak, NEIP does still not have its legal backing.
We don't want NAPCOP to be sustainable.
Why don't we want it?
Because it's an interim program. It's an interim program because the government is saying that in the circumstance that they find themselves, based on what they've inherited, etc., etc., they are not able to create jobs for graduates the way they had wanted. It will take a while for that to happen. In the meantime, this is what they are offering. So we don't want to.
You see, people have established already that without expanding the local economy and without expanding Ghanaian businesses, then you create sort of like a gap in employing more young people, which then creates a very risky situation for our country. So whereas it's temporary, we must look at the kind of jobs we're creating for people. So the jobs that we're going to create for Ghana's youth must be jobs that are linked to the global market, jobs that are innovative in nature, jobs that then transform businesses. Good. So then it speaks to the ILO's definition of what decent work is, which is fair, equitable, which is that we provide adequate compensation to many of these people who should be employed. So Ghana's minimum wage is about 9.68. So if you put that at about a month, you're looking at 193 Ghana cedi. We're paying national service personnel
minimum wage 193 Ghana cedis.
It's 9.68. So you put that across a month, you're doing about 193.68 or so. Now, if you put that against the national service scheme and how much they are paying, that's about 500 cedis.
How much national service being paid?
I think about 550 or so. Okay. So if you're paying someone 700 cedis, that is equitable. That's why you have many Ghanaians making arguments that when I started, for example, when I started work, it's not too low, it's equitable.
I mean, you've seen social media, people complain.
Of course. We have all had challenges where we started work and we're not paid as much as we wanted. So that said, there are a number of things that globally we use to determine the impact of youth employment initiatives, in the design of youth employment initiatives. And there are key benchmarks that we look at. For example, that what are the risks that are associated with the project? In the project design itself, what are the factors that were considered? In training, what constitutes the training in terms of the curriculum? So there's competency-based training and there's content-based training. Which one are we adopting for these people? Which speaks to the skills transfer that I was talking about. And when we are teaching these people who we temporarily engage for a period of 3 years, it must be linked to the job market. It must be decent work, and that's what we are seeing. So it looks like they may have gotten that right in terms of the compensation.
Compensation, but what about the models?
So the models we don't know. We know the models. We know Enterprise Ghana, we know Heal Ghana, etc. But in terms of the training that they will get, we need to be able to establish.
If you look at the communication area, for instance, they will have basic training in computer manipulation. What I mean by computer manipulation is just computer set skills, so that they can type, they can print, they can do words, they can do something.
The world of work today is looking for people who are innovative. So we can't follow the program. But we can't follow the program. What we've got to look at is whether or not it would be, because there's a limited time for training.
Yeah, it's 3 years.
So does it take? So that's where you've got to look at the profiling of who joins the program, because they'll have different needs. They'll have different. There's actually
yes. How many are the models?
There are about 5 or so. There's Enterprise, there's HEO, there's the Revenue Ghana. Whether it's 7 or not, the most important thing is to look at the training that we give these people and how it's linked to the job market and how when they transition, they can either be independent or not. That we don't know. That is the core of it.
I think I saw something on the social media that I'm trying to pull up that was written by a man called Aaron Hughes, where he sort of gave the...
So there are personality skills that they'll be taught.
Okay, so
among
it says
others.
here that month 1 to 3, development of soft skills through specifically designed enrichment programs. This covers career counseling, essential personal relations, and professional skills for the workplace.
Yes.
Does it work with your ILO benchmark?
Well, again, it's about the profiling. Like we're saying, not all youth who enter the program will have the same competencies. So if you restrict yourself to a certain period, then you must clearly define what the curricula will entail.
This is saying happens before the placement, actually.
Yes.
So then comes placement.
Yes.
This is month 4 to 30.
Yes.
And then month 31 to 36. It says
yes.
specific, targeted training based on agreed, personalized plan.
Yes.
Beneficiaries remain in their job till exit.
Yes.
Currently, there are 4 key exit plans.
Good.
Based on existing conditions at the time of exit.
Yes.
Remain, obtain employment with the entity the beneficiary served with, example, GRA, manufacturing firm that person served with, obtain employment elsewhere based on skills and experience gained, branch out into entrepreneurship with possible linkage with NEIP,
yes.
etc., or reskill, retrain, including further education based on skills, learning, and interest gained on the job.
Paul, why isn't YE managing this project? That's the first point. The second point is that given what we experienced with YE and JIDA then, in terms of contract agreements, we're asking now that under this, what procurement process will be followed? Will we have the same sole sourcing? Will we have the same restricted tendering? Or it will be opened up for that? That said, we're asking again, per what you've read, who will conduct these training? What kind of agreements are we going to sign with third-party agents to ensure that we have a rigorous curriculum that actually provides qualitative and quantitative competence to these people who join the program? That said, we have an issue of underemployment in our country, and even on the continent as well. So it's not a question of whether or not youth are gainfully employed or not. It's also what they contribute to the world of work. And employers are complaining as we speak. So it's a fantastic program, but it must follow a number of things that have been benchmarked in the design of youth initiatives across the world. When you check their website, it does appear that they've sort of, take some of them for us. But it will depend largely again on the management team. So who constitutes the management? We don't know that. We really know Anyas Ibrahim is the lead. Anyas Ibrahim is the lead for it. He's a fantastic gentleman, by the way. And he's done fantastic work. When you go on the website, the number of things that address the key concerns around risk, around exit strategies, and that. But it must be coherent with policy. We cannot continue to have a de-linked environment when initiatives that are targeting youth sit in different departments and agencies. The National Employment Policy, have you read it yourself, Paul?
No, I haven't read it.
I mean, it's clear on what should happen around the entrepreneurial front and the youth employment front. We must have a voice that harnesses this. NEIP, YEA, how do you call this one? NAPCO must sit under a central committee. If it's under the Ministry of Employment, Labor Relations, it must be there. And then let's have a coordinated, targeted response to addressing the needs of youth in this country. And I think that will go a long way to shape the discussion around youth employment.
Okay, so a few things that you raised. You think that in terms of policy consistency, maybe YEA or one of those agencies should have led this initiative?
I'm saying per the act of YEA, because you don't want to create doubt in the minds of youth in this country. The YEA Act clearly states that YEA will be the one that champions and coordinates youth employment initiatives and also entrepreneurial development in the country. So you cannot de-link that. And then you have NEIP, which is still a program under the Office of the President, which when it was established, when we put that document together and we briefed this new administration on it, must also have a sustainability plan to either become independent or be annexed to an agency. So is it annexed to the Ministry of Business Development? Let's assume that it is done. But beyond that, it's also look at it itself must have a national entrepreneurship policy. Ghana does not have a national entrepreneurship policy. We're not supporting startups as we should. The investment laws don't protect startups. So you have startups that are seeking to raise money that have to be incorporated in the US.
Don't you have a venture capital fund?
But that is a fund that is expanded in scope, but it's not specific to startups. Because the needs of startups are different.
Venture capital?
Yes, you know, the startup environment.
Is another word for startups?
No.
Really?
You should check what the VCTF is doing. It's funding ticket sizes above $100,000, $200,000, $300,000.
Okay.
Within the startup space, you have startups that have needs,
10,000.
the early stage, the growth stage, they're looking for support. And NEIP is looking to do that. I've spoken to John, and John is seeking to do something about that. But going forward, what Ghana must do is to ensure that we have a coordinated policy response, and it's harnessed, it's coordinated. Second part is to look at the risk, the exit strategies, the service agreements, the procurement, the legal status, but also in terms of monitoring and evaluation. And we can do something better around the youth front.
Okay, Kwashe, thank you very much for coming. It's excellent. Thank you for your insights. I'm sure the government will be listening to you. And for those who saw us on Facebook outside the country, thank you very much for your time. John Oma can be found on Orios website. Yes, it's ORIOS, Orios Group website. You can see him and see what he does. It's been a thrilling week, hasn't it, in news and current affairs. Next week, I'm sure, promises to be more thrilling as we get towards the middle of the year. And as we get to the Football World Cup, we have surprises for you here at Metro TV. Who will win the World Cup? I think Nigeria or maybe England. Thanks for watching and good night.